today's lecture. Coming back, we are back in Unit 1. So, when we are in Unit 1, there were some things that we covered in Unit 1, and that was largely to do with government and its role in tourism development, promotion, and management. Right from the beginning, that means the last few lectures, you saw that we were trying to assess what can the government do and try and mitigate a situation, come up with new solutions. And in some odd places, it's also necessary that the government has to create a nicer product so that more people can go and join, enjoy, and the entire product that you're creating becomes a success. So what are the last few things that we have been doing? So let's just run this through. So we did the different organizations, we did the service providers, we were in detailed discussion of IATO, which is called the Indian Association of Tour Operators. We were discussing what exactly their roles are, how is it that the body is formed, what are the kind of departments it looks into. These were under discussion. We also looked into those 13 odd action committee which the IATO has. Then we went into what is the Travel Agents Association of India. For TAAI, we will have to again quickly look into what it is, why is it important for us, what are the different roles it plays, what are the segments it looks into. We also had to talk about the Travel Congress by TAI, which is a annual event and it's a very coveted event of this organization. Last thing that we begin today is the competitiveness, or why is it that India in certain circumstances we're sometimes good and sometimes bad. If I have to look at India from, let's say, a foreigner's perspective and India from your and my perspective, it will be very different. Initially, when the past, what we had seen is that when the foreigners came in into India, our sense of accepting them was a little different. It could be that the economies had not opened up internationally. It could also be that the Indian mindset at that stage was not very welcoming, and therefore we were not very prone to accepting them, however much we were used to seeing foreigners, because there was a phase in Indian history where we were ruled by the foreigners. So, keeping that in mind, the position or how people visualized India from a foreigner's perspective would be slightly different from how you and me are looking at it. For you and me, the first thing, if I ask you, will be point number 2, which is written there. And we will always say, yeah, this is of course the problem. India is a very bad country. It is a warm country. It's very hot in some months and it is very dirty. It is filthy. These are the things you will say. Some of you will be a better, let us say, ambassador of India, and some of you will actually be talking a lot more highly about India than the others. However, when I come to this is also to note that if you read some old, maybe description about India, a lot of that description was made by the Brits who were living in India. And when you read that description, the description comes from a Westerner's description of India. On the contrary, some of these Westerners who stayed back in India, adopted India as a country, and they started living in India, the amount or the kind of travelogues that came out from them has become more fascinating than what you see as a Western direct way to express about India. We should take that into account and also remember that as an Indian, you are an ambassador for your country to the world. So, whenever you are out of India, whenever you are in a place where you are representing your country, please, for God's sake, at that stage, don't say, Hamara country bahut ganda hai. Please, you can always say that we have challenges, we have a huge number of people, we have a great amount of pressure on our infrastructure, which makes it very difficult. We have a lesser sense of a lesser civic sense. So those are good ways to express it, rather than just putting the country away and saying, oh god, that's a very horrible part of my country, please don't talk about it. So when you are representing India outside, please do remember that these challenges are only for our discussion right now. When you go out, try to forgive us for these challenges. Try to look at the positives of the country. Talk about the positives of the country. Always remember, India's culture is unique. So if you can talk about India's culture, you will stand as a cultural ambassador of this country. If you talk about the ways, mannerisms of people, a lot of it is missing all over the world. So that is where you can come forward and talk nicely about India, rather than always saying, Are nahi, my country is doomed, for God's sake, don't talk about my country. So that is not the approach we take. So quickly, let's go ahead and see, because when we ask you in an examination the challenges or the competitiveness, please have some of these points in your answers. Examples and understanding comes to you because you've also been handling this subject for the last 2 years, and in this process a lot of it has come out to you and you've also experienced it. Some of you are avid travelers, so when you're moving around the country also, you will see that at that stage you feel, sense, and you can observe it around you. That is where we need to be a little clear about. The first thing I put for you here is safety and security, and I hope that you understand this point very clearly. In India, there is a big trend which is on right now, which is female travelers moving around. Female travelers on their own, sometimes groups of females. That kind of an experience to happen in India, it's we are catching up, but we are catching up a little slowly. The reason being, you can move around very freely in certain parts of the country, but there will always be some parts of the country where we will have to think twice before you venturing out into those areas because of the lack of safety in that region. Secondly, there are some places in India, for example, the war-torn areas or the places where there is insurgency, or maybe for that matter, places which are deserted and extremely outsides of the major cities. Now, in those areas, it makes it a little difficult for people to accept the safety part of it. Look at this particular point from an Indian side and, of course, a foreigner's side. A foreign person, of course, gets mugged here, gets looted here, gets fleeced here, gets raped here. So there are so many other options that we see where the foreigners are apprehensive to travel in India. They'd rather go to countries where that respect is there. That apart, also it needs to be understood that the difference in culture between a foreign country and an Indian country is also one of the reasons why many of the Indian men actually perhaps go ahead and do what they are doing. A simple example for you, we've discussed this before. As you go along the Kolaba causeway, you will see how a certain item that he may sell, that man or the shopkeeper may sell to you at 50 bucks, will sell it for 250 bucks to the foreigner. So you are fleecing. I think one of the greatest ads that came out when they first launched Incredible India was try to be very friendly to a person who doesn't belong to your area. So safety and security, prime point and concern for us when it comes to opening up India to the international world as a good destination. Maintenance and cleanliness, the least I say about this, the better. We all understand this. Bombay as a city has a very neat and well organized system of collection of garbage. So you see that you are putting your garbage out and that goes into the disposal, etc. Many 2 tiers, 3 tier cities did have an issue regarding that. So if you are familiar with it, there has been a new set of guidelines which has come from the government telling us how to dispose our waste, and all municipalities have to do it. So there are ways in which we are trying to be clean, but then still the volume of filth that is there, or the volume of garbage which is there, is so huge that today to even start cleaning it will take us a lot of time to get that implemented. One example I'll give you is the Dal Lake in Kashmir. The Dal Lake in Kashmir is or used to be one of the finest areas of tourist importance. And if you saw the Dal Lake, the beauty of Dal Lake was that there would be in the past what are called houseboats. and people would be living in those houseboats. So occasionally, in the past, when it was a raging tourist destination, Kashmir, at that stage, people would live there. People, of course, when they were living, all the waste started getting disposed into the Dal Lake. Somehow in those days, whatever happened and all the kind of muck that got deposited started damaging the Dal Lake. So the size of the Dal Lake started shrinking. That means it started getting full of kachra or waste or garbage or sludge or even sometimes night soil. That means the toilets would open up directly into the Dal Lake. And there were fishes also, because it's one of the Dal fishes are also caught and eaten next to the lakes, very close to what even Switzerland does. So technically, what we started experiencing was that the health of the Dal Lake started degenerating. It's been a while now, but we do have, or we have an experience of a international conservationist who has come and spent 2 to 3 years in the Vale of Kashmir region, and he's trying to clean up the Dal Lake. So he has taken the help of the local people, the Shikara people, and he ensures that he's cleaning it all up. Also on the Dal Lake, there is a covering of a vegetation which comes in certain months, and that allows the biological oxygen of that particular water to decrease. So that also needs to be cleaned occasionally. When there was a lot of movement in the Dal Lake, those things would not happen. Now movement had reduced, and of course people were continuously dumping waste, and those became a big concern. Similarly, some of those very cold countries, I keep giving examples of the Mount Everest. In the Mount Everest, if you have seen the report which I had read on National Geographic, right along the track towards the peak or the summit of Mount Everest, there are dead bodies which are lying there. There are the wastes which people had carried with them, which they dump there on their way back, because the bag starts getting heavier as you start rising to a certain altitude. And that has resulted in a huge amount of waste along the path which the trekkers take. That's a nuisance for us, because in that environment, it's a fragile environment, it's a very cold environment, and obviously in that environment, there is no amount of degeneration or decomposition that is happening. In fact, even the night soil takes a huge amount of time, if at all it can decompose, or it stays there like that for posterity's sake. So those are the concerns we have: maintenance and cleanliness. I'm not saying the government is not doing. We'll come to a small discussion at the end of this. What can the government do? Information and communication is an area which today, with the, I would say, improvement of your internet and internet devices and connectivity as it has happened, we are shooting into the 5Gs, and I presume shortly we'll see many more Gs beyond that. When you see such a situation, obviously the information is on your fingertips. That is the best way you can assimilate, create, send, and even ensure that everybody has that information. Today, it's been a boom. I think the best example you can see is the latest crime that has been crime or whatever has happened in Mumbai. You can see the number of views, you can see the way people are logged in into it. So, a small little thing today can be very easily acceptable, can be easily seen, can be easily experienced both virtually, and thereafter you can go for a physical experience. Then comes infrastructure, which is always a challenge with us. Remember, we are a huge country. And as huge as we are, I always keep saying this: between your easternmost point and between your westernmost point, there is actually a 2.5 hour difference. So that difference means that when it is morning in your Arunachal Pradesh area, it is actually night at 6 o'clock in the western part of the country, that's Mount Abu region. Similarly, when sun is setting in the Mount Abu region, at that point your eastern part of the country, Arunachal, Assam, Meghalaya, Manipur, all of these places, actually its sun has set long back. So this 2.5 hour difference is the width of your country. And that is a huge country. So to think of this country, a small infrastructure also is costly. It needs building, it needs government to create it, it needs a certain amount of political sensitivity to have it built, and those being the major concern for us. A very simple example for you: You are seeing a second airport come up in Bombay. Some benefit will, of course, simmer to the rest of the region. Similarly, you're also having to, right now, you can see a part of the Golden Quadrilateral which is there. So between Mumbai and Pune, you're a part of the Golden Quadrilateral. Way back in the late 90s, we were deciding that we are going to have more roadways for the country. There should be movement of roadways, and that is where the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government actually in those days thought of building you this quadrilateral, thought of building you corridors, north, south, east, west corridors. They also thought of building a coastal elevated road for you. So these are benefits which gradually, it has to be started over a long time. It needs to be built. Someone needs to finance them, and only then it can come of some benefit to you. This lockdown, when we were all sitting at home, I don't know if you've been following up, but in the northern part of the country, railway lines have been set, roadways have improved. Now we are looking at a shorter distance for Kailash Mansarovar route. All this has been happening thanks to the sincerity of the military services, thanks to the sincerity of the Border Roads Organization, the government of India, which is pressurizing to have these changes made. So, infrastructure is always a concern in India. The more you do, even more there are opportunities that you can do. A little bit goes a long way to build more infrastructure in the future. Next is a very big problem, and this is not a problem only for India. This is a problem for all over underdeveloped countries. And that is the reason we need to be very careful. Okay, we are in it's 3:24 right now. In case we get logged out, please log in back again. So, in the event of unplanned development, what we have to understand is that because of the not of non-availability of resources all over the country, certain areas develop more than the others. The areas that develop have almost everything. Will have all kinds of tourism-related infrastructure, tourism-related things that you need. But there could be another area which is more beautiful than that, but it does not have the infrastructure, it does not have the development that you desire. So those are the concerns that are there. It's not a problem of India, it's a problem all over the developing world, all over the underdeveloped world, because we are struggling with our resource management. Facilities, very important, and I think we worked tremendously on this in the last few years, if you ask me. What kind of facility are you giving to the person who is traveling? What are your visa norms? What are your problems that you have? How can I make my passport processes simpler? Those are the things that you need to provide to a person. Inadequate promotion of all destination, that's again very simple thing that you have. Even if you see the government of India internationally, the love of India is in select destination. So India prefers to sell those destinations because already there is a market for it. We should look at trying to develop even those areas which are not so well developed but still have a lot of potential in them. So don't just develop Rajasthan, don't just develop Goa, please develop some interior of Madhya Pradesh. Hindustan ka dil dekho, right? That's the word. So that's how we need to look into it. Inherent nature of the Indian ecosystem, the least I comment on this, the better. But there is a lack of there's an attitude which is lacking. There is a we don't want to help people. We don't want to come out of our ways to make sure that a person traveling in India has a good experience. They make our problems a little more unique, and then nobody wants to come to India because of the apathy they've experienced, problems they experience. They want to say, let's just avoid, let's go to a country which is more friendlier to me. So that is a concern for India to develop as a tourist destination. Quickly, what can we do? We can actually have a government which has attempted to at least come up with solutions to manage these issues. All of these are long term changes. Some of them are short term changes. Long term changes will have to get implemented over a period of time. Short term changes will have to get implemented quickly. A short term change is something which we should look forward to. Example, a policy change. Example, an infrastructure building. Example, facilitating your visas and the passports. Example, you are going to ensure that suppose there's a problem faced by any traveler in India, the process of the help the person gets is going to be a little more. Those are the concerns and the ways in which we shall take this forward. I see some raise of hands. I'm going to